know, you have to be attractive to blow up on YouTube, but I'm gonna try anyway. This is my first time on camera on YouTube, so I know that I probably don't have any screen presence, so to fix that problem, I got this lamp. So anytime you just can't stand looking at me, look at the lamp. Please don't click off, just look at this lamp. Not sponsored, by the way. Today we're gonna talk about womanism, aka... I'm trying to be a good YouTube girl today because I don't want to upset YouTube at this time. I've made a video about this specifically in the past, but I think I should elaborate on some points that I made in that video. I also want to understand the logic behind some of these points, so I'm gonna watch some TikToks to understand. I will argue after I listen to each point. Anyway, let's watch this.
When I was 4, I was trampled by a dog that was much bigger than me. And ever since then, I've had a fear of dogs. Lots of people are afraid of bees. That's a very common fear. And I first got stung by a bee when I was 7. But not all dogs are going to trample you, and not all bees are going to sting you. So if I make a statement like, dogs are scary, it's a given that not all dogs are scary. Chances of getting bit by a dog are 1 in 73. Chances of getting stung by a bee are 6 million to 1. Chances of getting 1 in 5. If any woman makes a video about women's issues with men, don't you dare say not all men.
I did some research on the statistic that women have a 1 out of 5 chance of being robbed, and it's misused almost every time it's cited. The chances of getting robbed as a little girl are much higher than when you're over the age of 25. So this study could not have yielded the frequency at which women may or may not get, robbed. And this study doesn't claim to do that, as we'll see later. 17%, which is about 1/5 of women over the age of 18, aka adult women, reported being robbed in their lifetimes, which includes when they were a child. Only 0.3% of adult women reported being robbed in the last 12 months. I think that instead of asking them if they were robbed in the last 12 months, this study should have asked them if they have been robbed after they turned 18. There are other major flaws with this study, one of which is that they count threats of rob as rob. The study says, rob was defined as an event that occurred without the victim's consent that involved the use or threat of force in, So when survey respondents were asked if they were robbed, they were actually asked if they were robbed or threatened with rob. Someone being carried to somebody else's room without their consent, being threatened with rob, but escaping before the other person could rob them would count as rob for this study's purposes. Don't get me wrong, being threatened with rob is awful, but it's not the same thing as being robbed. Another major flaw is that this study was conducted in 1995 through 1996. If my high school teachers didn't let me use articles from 2006 to write my eutrophication paper, then I don't think using sources from the 1990s should be allowed. And I'm not just talking about this girl, I'm also talking to publications that cite this. We should call for another study to be conducted since rape is such a horrible crime and can haunt a person for the rest of their lives. I'm not trying to discredit anyone here, I'm just seeking understanding, and this is what I found. Even the researchers themselves said that this study cannot be used to determine the prevalence of rape, so I'm not doing anything wrong. Let's say that the chances of getting robbed are 1 in 5 for the sake of her argument though. So, since your chances of getting a dog bite or a bee sting are much lower than getting, and people are scared of dogs and bees even though the chances are low, it is completely justifiable for women to go around saying that men are evil. I've gotten physically attacked by a woman of a certain group. I'm not gonna say which group because I'm a good YouTube girl. The group that this woman belongs to disproportionately commits a lot of violent crimes in the US. And yes, I looked at the statistics specifically for the women. I'm sorry for the discrepancy in lighting. I just realized that my light was off until now. I was 14 at the time of the attack and the lady was like 30. She was much stronger than me. Anyway, for some time I feared women of that group. However, I went to therapy to work on my issues and I no longer fear women of that group. If I would have said or tweeted, bleep women are bad or bleep women are aggressive, that would have been okay by your logic. Look, I can understand that men can be intimidating because of your past trauma, the misleading statistics, and just being better safe than sorry. However, assuming that a majority of men are evil because 1 out of 5 women reported that they were robbed and/or threatened with rob, likely by a man, is not right. I'm not saying that when you're walking out in the street, you shouldn't assume the worst of the men in the vicinity to ensure that you're safe. But we women do that while walking out in the street because if we beware of all men, then we beware of the small percentage of dangerous men as well. The average man is stronger than the average woman, so that's why we are specifically weary of men when we go out. If it was a dangerous woman, then we could probably take her because the gap between our strengths isn't as big as the gap between our strength against a man. However, that is not the same thing as telling everyone men are evil, or men are scary, or men are dangerous. And no, it is not enough men that we can make the assumption that it's all men, because guess what? A man can have 100 victims. You can't say it's all men because it's not even most men. People who think like you assume that most men have 2 victims without recognizing that one man could have 50 victims and another man could have no victims. Girl, I understand the safety mode that women activate when they walk to the store, but that safety mode is due to some men being dangerous, not most of them, and us being extra cautious.
Those types of videos are meant to be educational and bring up issues that women go through.
Trans men are not men. They are superior. They are elevated. They are on a higher level than the rest of men, which is why when we ride at midnight to kill all men, we will spare the trans community.
They're almost never meant as a personal attack to you. It's only an attack if you make it one.
Don't get it twisted. It's only an attack if it's an attack. It's not what you make of it when you are being grouped with criminals or you are called part of the problem simply for belonging to a certain gender. At the time that the tick analogy was going viral, some people who think like this were claiming that all men are rapists simply because most rapists are men. This is where a lot of stupid ideas like male curfews started coming in.
Specifically studied gender-based trauma, and I have 2 relevant degrees from Harvard on this. Let's talk about men who say, not all men. This behavior comes from 3 sources. First, this is a male pick-me behavior. Oh, I understand there are men out there who are acting in ways, but I'm not one of them. I'm one of the good guys.
Wow, they're saying that most guys are not evil, including them, because it's a fact. They're such pick-me boys. First of all, why would someone who sees through your BS want to be picked by you? Aren't your opinions so drastically different that they would want nothing to do with you? For example, maybe they opened the door for you and you're all like, patriarchy has entered the chat. Why would they want to deal with that?
It's a total delusion, by the way. In a patriarchy, everyone has internalized misogyny, sexism, and oppressive ways to treat women. That's why we all gotta unlearn patriarchal ways of behaving.
Oh, this is what this is all about. I should have known. They are assuming that this is an extremely misogynistic society where women are constantly put down. I'm not saying that there's no misogyny in our society, but it's not as much as people who think like this claim, obviously. They think this is Iran or something. It's not. This is why their arguments will never make sense, because they are under the assumption that this is Iran number 2.
Number 2, the need to control women's voices. Notice how they are tone policing women far more than they're mad at those men who are being women, who are giving rest of the men a bad name.
Perfect. I have the opportunity to say this. I do not speak for all women. I just make arguments that are logically consistent for the most part. I don't need to be anyone's voice except for the voice of reason, or at least a reason. I'm not a mouthpiece for men nor women. They're not policing you. They're setting things straight. If someone online calls you an aggressor just for being a man, why would you sit there and just take that? Let's say you're a guy minding your own business online and some chick on Twitter that has "burn all men" in her bio tweets that men are a disease and that she supports a male curfew because men are rapists and they're dangerous. You wouldn't say anything to that? Nothing at all? You wouldn't even say, stop saying that I'm part of the problem or associating me with this kind of behavior? Again, this is not the same as when you're walking around alone and being weary of every man because they're stronger and a small percentage of them will use that strength against you. This is the same as gathering a group of people and yelling, all the men among you are criminals or they're dangerous. Or yelling men are scary and walking away. Imagine a mob of people who think like this every day telling you that you're a bad person just because you belong to a certain gender. Wouldn't your first instinct be to say, but I'm not that? People who think like this know that their argument is weak, so anytime some guy tries to defend himself against these mean comments, their response is, why are you responding to this if this doesn't apply to you? If you really aren't a criminal, then why are you so defensive?
3, male superiority complex.
I genuinely hope that your father comes back from the store with milk someday. Let's watch one more.
We have a 1 in 11 million chance of getting killed by a shark. So then why are we scared of sharks? Not all sharks.
Sharks are not a group of people. Sharks are not socially affected by the way we call them killers. Men are affected by the way you call them all criminals or bad people.
But we're still scared of it. We're still scared when we go into the ocean that a shark's gonna come and bite our legs off, right? But it's 1 in 11 million. You know why we're scared? Because they're dangerous.
There you go. She says that all sharks are dangerous and implies that she thinks all men are dangerous. It may not seem like it because I was roasting, but I understand these women's feelings. I really do, because I'm also a woman. A lot of these women were probably hurt by men in many ways. However, they are applying these feelings they have about a group of men and applying it to all men. That's not good for men or for them. Imagine having that anxiety that you feel when you walk to the store every day with increasing magnitude. That's not good for your mental health. If you're genuinely scared of every man, go to therapy. I am very concerned for your well-being, and I hope, or I can tell you that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not scared of men because I know that most of them are not criminals. I am cautious when I walk to the store or when I'm out in the street, not because I know most men are dangerous, but to filter out the small percentage of them that are dangerous. Anyway, these women's logic is flawed. We already knew that, but now we know again. Bye-bye.